People who grew up poor but are now financially stable. What is a poverty habit you can't seem to shake? Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next videos. I wish you a pleasant viewing experience. Story 1. Waiting until something is completely unusable, broken dead before I replace it. People sell old stuff at yard sales and on marketplace and stuff, but that concept is foreign to me. If I'm not using it anymore, it's because it's trash and nobody else would want it anyway. Answer. I'm currently wearing my elementary school graduation shirt from 2005. It's an adult XL. Apparently the company that printed them for the school goofed and gave them half adult sizes. It's got a large rip in one side, no hem on the bottom, and a large hole around the belly button. The class of '05 printing is barely legible, and none of our signatures are. It will remain my "this is what I wear at home" when I don't need to leave the house anymore today shirt until it becomes physically impossible to wear. Why bother wearing out one of my nice shirts at home when that one still works? Story 2. I'm not rich, but I don't think I will ever give up using those Tupperware things lunch meat comes in as Tupperware. Story 3. Buying multiples of things and having both open. Like chips, that was a big one growing up. My mom went to the grocery store once a week, so we'd get one bag of chips to last for the week for a family of 4. If we ran out, oh well, gotta wait for the next grocery trip. And it was only ever one flavor. Same for cereals, cookies, juice, etc. Oh, you don't like that flavor? Too bad. Maybe next week will be one you like. It wasn't until a few years ago when I was at the grocery store with my husband and I saw a bag of chips I really wanted, but we already had a bag in the cart and he said, well, just get it. And I was like, I can just get it. And then I struggled with having 2 bags of chips open. Like I wanted one to be empty before I opened the other one, but why should I have to wait when I wanted those chips? Story 4. Internal monologue. This question isn't for me, it's for those who are financially stable, except on paper, I am. It'll say stable-ish though. There is always an awareness of how easy it is to lose it all, and therefore what you have never feels secure. I think that might be the ultimate poverty habit. Answer. Exactly. I have only been stable-ish for a couple of years now. I read personal finance advice pretty regularly, and I don't have that 6-month emergency fund that everyone says you need, but I'm working on it. What I do have is every gift card I've ever been given, just in case I can afford groceries or my kids' school supplies. I have 2 gift cards for Toys R Us from when I was pregnant with my son, who just turned 13. I did manage to use the 4 Sears cards I had before they closed, and I have so many Visa gift cards that I had to make a spreadsheet. They have come in handy many times over the years, but the last couple, I've been able to buy what I need and still save. I just don't know when I'll stop feeling like the floor will fall from beneath me. Story 5. I def price shop, meaning I'm never not looking at the price. I don't care if it's a can of beans. Let's get the 1.19 one over the 1.79. Story 6. Not getting rid of things because I might need them in the future. We never had the 4 random things, so we didn't get rid of things just in case. Story 7. I still eat like I'm poor. Beans, rice, pasta, potatoes. Meat is a flavoring, not a main course. The other issue that comes to light, now that I'm moving from a 2-bedroom apartment to a 1-bedroom apartment, is hoarding things. Growing up, the few things I did have were hard-won, and if anything happened to them, they'd never get replaced. Therefore, if I get a hold of anything, I feel like I must hang on to it or I'll never have it again. I'm getting better about it. But while getting rid of stuff, some choices are easy, some are not. Answer. My poverty meal, which I still cook when I want to lose weight, is carb.white rice, bought from Asian grocer 20-kilo jasmine rice bags. Veg. Frozen packet veggies, any supermarket is fine. Cheapest one. Protein, 70 cheap beef mince, 30 beans. Beef mince from Asian butcher will be cheaper. Flavoring, either gochujang, Instagravy, paprika, Nando sauce, or just plain MSG. Only ever use one flavoring. A batch should only have 2 of seasoning max in it. I would cook this up at the beginning of the week and have 2 serves a day. Breakfast would be nuts and Insta coffee, black. You can train Jim and eat this. Servings under 2 odd each. It's the cheapest health food you can make. Edit. If you further want to reduce costs, go 13 beans, 13 mince, 13 soft tofu. Story 8. Throwing away food, even if it's a little past its expiration date. Starving is such a horrible thing. I dislike eating crumb soup and fantasizing over food on the television. Story 9. Never throwing anything away until it's completely empty or unusable. I had a phone for 8 years, cracked screen, and never got another unit. It broke. Story 10. I still can't bring myself to waste money on purely decorative things. If it doesn't have a practical use, I can't spend money on it. My apartment has 0 wall decorations due to this mental block. Story 11. I still make my lunch for work every day. The cost every day is insane if, assume a reasonable 10-day meal. That's 50 week, 200 month, 2400 year. But then it's backed up by saving calories and then saving time. I don't need to go anywhere, wait for them to prepare it, etc. I still socialize and will go out with coworkers and stuff, but day to day, nah. Answer 10. A meal is low for eating out these days. Fast food meal combos are well over that now. Dine-in places are easily that or more. God help you if you have something delivered. Frozen, ready-to-eat meals, TV dinner type stuff will run you about $5 or less even for the healthier stuff. Prepping meals at home can easily bring the cost down to $2 to $5 a meal with barely any thought or effort. Bring your own snacks to work instead of raiding the vending machines, and you'll be paying a fraction of the price for that as well. Substitute bottled water for sodas and it drops even more. Story 12. Cutting open the lotion, shampoo, or soap bottles to get the last bits out of the bottom. The pump bottles leave a lot in the bottoms. Story 13. Nothing feels as good as having an emergency fund. Impulse buys and instant gratification purchases just chip away at my peace of mind. Nothing is worth that. Story 14. Growing up with food insecurity, I definitely have a need to always have extra food in the house. Always extra canned, frozen, dried food products, and baking supplies, just in case there is a zombie apocalypse and I want to make some pound cake. Story 15. I moved so much that I have trouble hanging things on walls. I can't bring myself to put a nail in the wall because my brain goes, not worth it. We're just going to have to patch it when we move soon. Story 16. For me, it was not wanting to live like my parents, especially my father, but I still have a fondness for white trash cooking. Story 17. I hoard shoot like I can afford it now, but maybe not tomorrow. So I'll buy a fudge ton of it now, and then I won't have to worry about it later. It's stupid, but I can't let it go. Story 18. Price anchoring. I know what the lowest prices are for things on sale and can't bring myself to pay full price for them, even though it would be no hardship at all for me to do so. Story 19. I keep detailed inventory of exactly how much food and consumable supplies I have, and when I'm likely to run out and start to panic when it gets down to less than 3 weeks. And I almost never buy perishable food except for necessary milk and dairy. Whatever I have may need to last me a month or more. Story 20. Don't leave lights on, water running, knowing the cheapest gas station close to you. My husband never knows the cheapest gas station. He says you have to get gas no matter what. Who notices the prices? Story 21. Buying things for myself that aren't strictly necessary. I'm getting better, but I used to look at all purchases from a purely utilitarian standpoint. Story 22. Mentally calculating the total when grocery shopping. Most of the time, I'm accurate within a couple dollars. In checking my bank account total before checking out. Story 23. Using every drop of water in a glass. Water has dust in it. I need to find a plant I can pour it into. Story 24. Passing up free food. I can have just eaten lunch at work, and if free food suddenly shows up, I have such a hard time turning it down. Story 25. I almost never had enough money to buy something for myself, so I would keep a list of things I wanted and would periodically reevaluate its order. Things I want the most were at the top of the list. Things that turned out to be impulse buys I don't really want anymore, I'd take off the list. I still do that. I base my meal decisions on a $2.50 a night budget. If I can stretch a dinner to enough nights to get the total cost to make it down to $2.50 a night, I'll make it. I will not heat my house until sweaters are no longer enough, and I have all the registers closed in every room I don't use so I don't waste heat. Cooking in the winter is nice because I can leave the oven door open afterwards, after turning it off, so the heat warms up the room. Answer. Closing registers like that screws up your furnace. It increases static pressure in the ductwork, which puts stress on the blower motor and can cause the heat exchanger to overheat. It's designed to run with full air flow, so you really shouldn't have more than 1 to 2 registers closed at any given time. You can pay for a lot of natural gas for the $10K that a new furnace costs. Plus, not heating rooms can make them prone to mildew mold growth, and depending on how cold it is outside and how well your pipes are insulated, could burst a pipe. You would be better off to heat your whole house to a lower level to prevent mildew-frozen pipes and use a space heater in the room you're in. Story 26. I recycle, reuse, and I'm as resourceful as you can imagine. At 57 years old, I also have stuff that I've purchased many years ago that I still use today. Story 27. Put good money into things that you use a lot and don't spend money on stuff you really won't use. Only use a plant substance whacker once or twice a summer? Buy a cheap jerk plant substance whacker. Cook a lot, buy the best pans you can afford. Story 28. My wife grew up borderline malnourished at time, and even though that was 15 years ago, she still hoards food despite having more than ample savings. Story 29. Zero. I'm solidly lower middle class now and grew up with both my parents having never graduated high school, USA, but I never stopped the mentality I had when I was in the working world and pushing myself through my first degree in college. That sounds privileged, I am aware, but I paid my own way and worked my jerk off. I'm a fantastic cook, have a taste for plain water, and my entertainment is very cheap. My only binge spending is in books, and they're mostly textbooks for my career. I enjoy it though. Story 30. Not wasting food. I grew up food insecure and wasting food was a cardinal sin. Thrifting clothes. I know what brands look good on me and fit me properly, as I've got a difficult figure, hourglass, busty, no bum. So I go to Poshmark, Depop, Mercari, ThredUp. Why spend $200 on a blazer when can get it used for $50? Obviously, I buy new underwear and socks, things like that, but I thrift darn near everything else because even though I can afford to buy things brand new, why would I when I can score them for pennies on the dollar? Let someone else spend the cash up front. My kids have picked up this habit too, and they love telling their friends how much they saved on a skirt or a top by buying on Depop instead of in the store. In the same vein, buying makeup on eBay. Buying perfume and name brand makeup hair care, translation, expensive, on fragrancenet.com, rather than full price at Sephora or whatever. Why would I pay full price for Bumble, or Verb when I can get it cheaper? Dupes of perfume if I don't want to pay for them on fragrancenet.com. Mimec, Dossier, Finery, and others have great dupes for very expensive fragrances like Baccarat Rouge, Fleur, Le Labo, and others. Turning off the water when brushing teeth, not flushing overnight if I have to pee. Old habits die hard. I'm originally from Southern California, and even though I'm now on the East Coast and have a well, so I don't pay for water other than the electricity for the well pump, I still don't waste water. Adding water to laundry detergent, shampoo, and dishwasher soap, the sink kind, to stretch them. Smashing together the soap sliver, new bar of soap so I don't waste soap. Reusing Ziploc bags for the same things, like cheese. Price shopping and buying the cheaper thing. Beans for X amount or X10 amount. Store brands versus name brand. Checking my bank account daily or near daily. This came in handy the day someone got access to our bank accounts and tried draining us of $8,000 in a single blow. Shopping for things like insurance every 6-12 months. Amazing how much you can save by switching. Calling up my TV and internet providers and threatening to leave to get discounts. Picking up to-go food instead of paying exorbitant prices for DoorDash to have it delivered. Story 31. I am financially stable now. Though I lived on a shoestring from age 16, 40-ish, I mentally track every morsel of food in my fridge and pantry, expiration dates, and know the number of possible days of meals I have. I have no hoarding problems, and I'm happy to share and cook for others, but I always know what food I have in my home. Story 32. Growing own food, learning how to do things yourself instead of hiring people, utilizing public parks and the library. Story 33. The inability to treat myself or buy something nice for myself without feeling like I'm doing something reckless or foolish. Have no issue doing that for my kids, my wife, or some close friends. But for me, I get weirded out by the idea and have to reason myself into it. Story 34. The one I've never been able to shake is having way too many blankets. I have more blankets than I'll ever need. Because you never know when you aren't going to have heat. Never missed a single utility bill as an adult. Never had my power off for anything other than a utility outage. But at 35, I still need at least 2 blankets in every room. Coats and hoodies too, to a lesser extent. Story 35. Fixing everything. If it stops working, I'll pull it apart and rig it up. I'm kind of known for it, but if I can't fix it, I take it to my dad. If he can't fix it, I cannibalize it and keep any parts that might come in handy later. My sister and I still like to go shopping, where we walk around for a few hours picking everything we want, and then at the end we don't get anything, and just go home. The joys of shopping without spending the money. Story 37. Hoarding shoot that I might need someday, but never sees the light of day for decades before it's thrown out. Getting the last drop out of the toothpaste tube, the shampoo bottle, the jelly jar, the mayo jar, etc. Not wasting any food, which makes me fat because my kids leave a bunch of leftovers from eating out, and they won't eat it, and I can't stand to see it go to waste. Story 38. Not seeing the opportunities and possibilities that a half-decent income has already enabled. Kind of getting used to making do with what you have when in reality, you can now afford things that bring you extra joy. Example, I was dying to get an electric guitar as a teenager. I was passionate about guitars and memorized tons of riffs, but we couldn't afford one, let alone classes for learning to play. Fast forward 20 years, I finally realized that thanks to my income, a guitar, amp, and classes were now well within my budget and had been for the past 10, if not 15 years already. I had literally held on to the image of guitar playing being inaccessible, then realized I can march into a store right now and buy 1 or 3 if I want to. Story 39. I grew up having to use an outhouse. To this day, at 62 and upper middle class financially, I still check the inside of the toilet paper roll for spiders. Still eat biscuits and gravy too. Story 40. I buy cans of whole olives and slice them if I want sliced olives, because my family stressed that sliced olives weren't worth the extra 51 and that it could be used elsewhere. Story 41. I have never had food delivered. I rarely go out to eat. I have a couple of nice outfits to wear when going anywhere, but at home, I wear cheap, raggedly clothes. Story 42. Still hesitate to spend on anything that feels non-essential, even if it's something that could save time or improve quality of life. That mindset helped me stretch every resource while building my digital projects, but now I'm learning that investing in ease isn't wasteful, it's smart. Old habits die slow, but growth is real. Story 43. My mom grew up poor and always rips the dryer static sheets in half. Has my whole life. Let's just say I was not raised poor and we could afford bounce sheets. Story 44. Spending too much money. Now that I'm well off, I buy things I dreamt of when I was younger. I just bought a 20-acre ranch with a river on it, and I'm about to do some crazy shootout there. Story 45. I'm a multimillionaire, and I cannot buy a new car. Just can't. It seems like a waste of money when my 17-year-old car is still in good shape. Answer, cars get used until you've run them into the ground. I keep my car up until the point that repairing it would be less affordable than getting rid of it. I've kept cars that were legally totaled. If anyone in my family was ever just able to get a new car, when the old one still worked, it got passed on to either a new driver or someone currently not able to afford one whose car was on the brink of dying. People who lease cars or upgrade every few years blow my mind every time. It seems insane to me. Story 46. My dad's family immigrated from Scotland to Canada around 1950. My grandfather worked as a cashier for Eaton's, while my grandmother was a SAHM. They survived around the poverty line. My dad will not throw anything out. Sour cream containers, screws and bolts, plastic bags, every tiny piece of lumber, washes Ziploc bags and used aluminum foil. He makes $250K a year as a government employee. Story 48. I still live like I was in college. If it wasn't for my wife, I'd still wear old hand-me-down clothes and flavored ground beef mixed with rice and sauce for meals. I still eat this. Very hard for me to spend money on essentials to this day. A 30 meal or shirt, although the other one is trash, literally hurts me. Story 49. Thrifting, price matching, getting prices adjusted if you purchase and it goes on sale later. Finishing my plate, saving leftovers, using coupons, stacking coupons, wearing clothes until they are ripped scraps. Please tell me I'm not the only one. Cutting tubes, toothpaste, face wash, open and scraping out the last bits. Story 50. While no longer going to garage sales as we don't need anything, I am still very careful to rotate the same few garments, so most are still nearly new. The idea was from my youth to not need to buy a lot every year. Now comfortably retired, I have more clothes than I will live long enough to need to buy more. I do now throw away anything showing wear, damage, or strains and feel guilty when putting the mending in the trash. When my turn to cook, a casserole of pasta, meat, and sauce were the go-to for stretching food dollars when a child, so I still make those. At the grocery store, I really don't pay much attention to prices. We are in our old age for which we saved for decades. Brand name Fritos, big containers of Deluxe nuts with no peanuts. Story 51. My wife can't shake buying the cheapest possible item, price first, value second, if ever. She still can't seem to figure out that we make enough that we can actually buy a quality item that's not necessarily the name brand, but has more value than the cheapest option. Story 52. Food hoarding. Nothing extreme here, but the house's freezer and pantry are completely disorganized and loaded up. There's some old stuff hanging around, and I'm having a hard time digging down to it. I'm trying to plan meals around older food that's still within date and avoid buying fresh stuff. But when some things are on sale, I can't help myself. Story 53. Turning lights off when I'm not in a room. I give my family shoot when they leave lights on, like they are burning money. Drives me nuts. One of my favorite things about leaving for vacation is that my utility bills at home will be cheaper the time we are gone. Story 54. Stocking up on things I use a lot of when they're on sale to save future money. Saving plastic containers like butter, cottage cheese or sour cream tubs, or good takeout containers. Shopping from the clearance rack. Story 55. Not me, but my husband still puts water in the bathroom hand soap when it's almost empty to make it last longer. Like, sir, we can afford 2 for more hand soap. Drives me crazy when I go to pump the soap and a bunch of what is essentially just water shoots out. Story 56. I stress when a bill is due, even though I have the money to cover it. It's hard to shake feeling like I'm gonna fail, even though I'm literally paying the bill as I stress about it. Story 57. Store brand everything. I used to do it because I had to. Now I just do it to feel like I'm giving even the smallest middle finger to the fucking greedy corporations that think they can suck us dry with fucking 7 Doritos and 1.99 for a fucking 16 O's bottle of Coke at the checkout. I'm probably delusional since the mega conglomerates probably make the store brand stuff too, but it feels good to watch those fudge make a few less dollars. Story 58. Evaluating every purchase based on price and quality. A friend says I can afford to buy what I want, but unless something is broken, I'm not going to buy another. And every week, I buy extra food in case there's a pandemic. Strangely, I buy more food than any rich person will because of growing up poor. Story 59. At this very moment, I am at a salon and came for a haircut. I wanted to get highlights since more than a year and still assumed it's too costly for my short layered bob cut. While cutting my hair, the hairdresser said, if you want to go for highlights, I won't charge you for the haircut. Now I can pay for both the services, but the relief I felt is that this high-end salon is giving one service for free. After reading the comments, I cried a little while wearing the foils and everything in a room full of strangers and decided to share my experience. Hugs to all poor grown children who has enough to pay for stuff they want now. Story 60. My poverty habit is feeling as though I'm broke, regardless of how much money is in the bank. Number 2 is getting analysis paralysis over just about any purchase over 100 pointed swords. Story 61. Before I buy something nice, I ask myself, do you want it or do you need it? I always feel guilty buying a new item. I also still thrift. Story 62. Fitting as much as possible in garbage bags before changing them. Reusing tissues by folding them. Reusing paper plates and paper towels if clean enough to. Story 63. Paper towels are expensive and only to be used for extremely messy messes or spills on the floor. My mom is a frugal germaphobe. Story 64. Growing up poor in a Southeast Asian country, we devoured rice with as little main dish as possible so we get full while making sure the whole family gets to eat the dish as well. Our grandma often portions out the dish on small plates to make sure everyone has a share. So now cutting back on carbs is so hard because we are so used to eating rice with everything. Story 65. I'm prone to resource guard. Edgy, buy enough food, but wait until I'm really hungry to eat any of it for fear of being without. Also, if I go out to eat, I keep to-go containers for food storage. Story 66. Using the metro system, I cannot fathom why anyone would spend $1,000s of dollars on a car each month, then obsess over maintaining it in mint condition. Cars are bound to get dents and scratches. It is impossible to avoid them if you're using the car. By the way, I know in most countries, public transportation used by everyone, but here is the US, it is mostly a poor people thing. Story 67. I didn't exactly grow up poor, depending on which age we're looking at, but when I'm eating something, I can't be expensive with it. Even if I don't necessarily like it, I will still eat it because it's the cheapest item there. Story 68. Does this count? I grew up in the hood, poor and in the middle of a gang war. I was always watching my back as a kid, and with good reason. Now I live in a very nice upper middle class neighborhood that is relatively safe. I still watch my back. I've taught my children to do the same. Story 69. Fixing stuff. I just won't let stuff die. I fix it. A real enemy of the consumer economy. My smartphone is like 10 years old, a Moto X, but it has an FM radio, so I'm not getting rid of it. My vehicle is a 1997 Tacoma, and I just put RTV on the oil pan, and I'm flushing the radiator. I cannot, for the life of me, get the sacrificial anode out of the water heater, but I urge anyone with a water heater to do so. Your water heater will last another 10 years if you do. Story 70. Almost all my clothes are thrifted. I've had some amazing finds like a leather jacket, which looks as good now as it did a decade ago, a pair of pants that turned out to be a 300-piece, and my literal wedding dress. Clothes, especially good clothes, are expensive, but with the right care, they can last decades. Story 71. I repair anything I can to extend the life. It used to be from buying used and often having to fix something, but now it is to keep it from the landfill as long as possible. Saving a buck is bonus. Story 72. Waiting for payday to pay bills. I could live on my savings for at least 6 months if my paycheck dried up tomorrow. I still get nervous about running out of money between paychecks. Story 73. Afraid to spend money. My job pays very well, and I live comfortably now, but I save about 70% of my income and overthink every purchase. Absolutely dislike seeing food go to waste. Bread and jam was a staple in the house during some tough times and still haunts me, LOL. Currently saving money to buy a house though, so the frugal life suits me right now. And also thinking of upgrading my car next year if I can move past the mental block. Unfortunately, have an expensive eye when it comes to cars, as it's a big interest of mine, so preparing to spend a few quid there. Story 74. Filling the empty shampoo bottle with water and washing my hair with shampoo water for a few days before throwing it away. Story 75. I'm getting better at it, but just hanging on to things I don't need just in case, and generally speaking, spending money on myself. Story 76. The accumulation of stuff. I didn't have a lot growing up, so lived a frugal lifestyle. Once I became financially stable and independent, my purchasing decisions are still always based on, do I actually need this? Story 77. I still put a little water in the ketchup, BBQ sauce, and mustard bottles to get the last little bit out. Story 78. I can't explain it, but spending money as soon as I get it. We were dirt poor growing up. I guess I'm just afraid it's going to get taken away. I'm not sure. Story 79. My mother, who was on the old-fashioned ticket food stamps and government cheese, unknown whereabouts at this point, used to leave my sister and me, starting when I was 7 and she was 12, 100 and told us to not starve while she disappeared for 2-3 months. I can't shake hoarding food just in case. I'm 54 yo and have an excellent job. Story 80. Not eating out, even if you set out to do so. I'd get to a restaurant, see the prices on the menu outside and just go, nah, I'm good. I can cook for a week for what one meal would cost me here. That and always buying the home brand. Story 81. I always know exactly how much money I have everywhere. On me, in my bank account, at home, wherever. And I mean exactly to the last penny. Story 82. Difficulty buying stuff I don't really need. Should I buy nicer dining chairs? Or should I just continue sitting on the plastic ones from IKEA that I've had for almost 10 years? Buying stuff that is not on sale also feels wrong. Story 83. A common one is overthinking every small purchase. You end up stockpiling or clipping coupons even when you can easily afford not to. Old habits die hard. Story 84. This is Reddit. People will earn $100K a year and tell you they are poor. The definitions of poor and rich here are pretty subjective. I have colleagues who earn well over national average in UK and tell people they are very poor. Story 85. Eating meat to the bone. Whenever I see my cousins take 1 or 2 bites of the chicken and throw out so much meat. Story 86. Taking a day off felt wrong. Growing up, my parents, who had experienced poverty, raised me to believe money is hard-earned and downtime is wasteful. Even now that I'm financially stable, I still struggle to enjoy a day off without feeling guilty. Story 87. Wearing clothes until they have holes in them and shoes until the sole has 0 grip. Then I use them for yard work. Story 88. I still pay my bills in order of what will get shut off first for non-payment. If I'm planning to buy anything that costs more than 100 or so, I research alternatives for like a year before I pull the trigger. Story 89. Less willing to splurge even though you can. X. Waiting to buy things you see in sale even though you can afford to get it full price. Story 90. Painfully considering every purchase and regretting pressing the buy button even for things that I really could use. Using the dish sponge until it's literally disintegrating. Same with toothpaste and shampoo. Story 91. I will not buy new toothpaste when I need it. I'll squeeze out every single ml, and when it's done, I'll fold it in on itself and find another ml. This goes on for 3 weeks. I also research exhaustingly when I'm going to buy something. I've been apprehensive to buy a wallet for 9 months. I'm on the fence. I've researched Ridge, knockoffs, cheaper alternatives, nylon, slim leather card wallets, Tyvek. I always buy with the intent of affordability and longevity. I have the money for a Ridge. I want a Ridge. I don't want to waste the money. Story 92. I'm not sure this answers your question, but it reminded me of this. My wife grew up not only poor, but with trashy, filthy parents. They are indoor smokers, so the furniture and floors were constantly sticky with tar, and they had indoor dogs, but no dog door, so the dogs would always piss and shoot on the floors, and it would sometimes stay there for hours, if not days, until someone got around to cleaning it up. CPS was at her house all the time. For this and a variety of other reasons, and she spent most of her teen years staying with friends. We've been married for almost 20 years and do fine financially, so those days are long in her past. Her parents are still alive, but we have not set foot in their home in at least a decade. But to this day, my wife is obsessive about keeping the floors clean. I just did a quick inventory, and we own 3 brooms, 2 upright vacuums, 2 robo vacuums, one of which also mops, a hand mop, a full-size steam cleaner, and a portable spot steam cleaner. She cleans the floors almost every day. She is not by nature a neat or clean person, but when it comes to floors, she still has that childhood trauma of waking on that sticky, piss-and-shoot-covered floor of her childhood and has vowed her house will always have clean floors. Story 93. Another thing I constantly do. Once I make a decision after searching every possible option for the best deal, I stress about, did I really need to get the best deal? This topic really hits home. Story 94. I do okay, but I still like to thrift, auction, garage sale. I think something of finding a score is neat and fun. Once I scored a like 300 tool for like 5 because nobody else knew what it was. I also fix things that break instead of buying something new. Some new crap I see is made so disposable, I'd rather fix the 20-year-old thing on occasion than buy a new thing that may last 5 years than be trash. Story 95. I cannot stand wasting food. That's probably why I'm fat, but as a kid when I was poor, I didn't always have food, so I feel now like when it's there, it must be eaten. Story 96. Not buying items on sale. My teen and I were at Sephora, and I really liked a highlighting powder. She convinced me to buy it. It was $40, and I'm still contemplating returning it. I don't feel right about spending that much on one makeup item, at least not without receiving freebies with purchase. Story 97. It was hard for me to spend money on things like water. I'd always wait till I got home and drink from the tap and filter it in a Brita, and other things I found not necessary until my spouse helped me break the habit. Story 98. Just the physiological feeling of poverty has never left no matter how much stability I've achieved. Like that all-knowing feeling that absolutely nothing is truly stable, and I could end up right back there through no fault of my own. So taking advantage of every moment. Story 99. I have finally, after too many years, accepted that I can go to restaurants and get takeout. I don't often because doing so fills me with guilt and fear. Story 100. Fixing my own everything. Car, plumbing, electrical, furniture, whatever. I still fix everything that breaks before I hire someone or replace it. Story 101. Anxiety about checking my bank account. There's always plenty of money in it, but it still gives me a full-body adrenaline reaction. Story 102. I won't pay extra for things just because it's convenient. I grocery shop at 4 different places. It physically stresses me out to miss using a coupon. Story 103. Fixing things I could probably just buy new and saving things that could be useful later, but I don't need right now. Story 104. I'm not rich, but I make more than most people I know. I waste too much money on small purchases, not thinking I could just make a big purchase from time to time. I was so used to not having money for anything that wasn't a bill or food. So when I started making more money, I would buy stuff like a new wallet, new sheets for my bed, etc. It took a while until I was like, I could buy a new couch or a new car. Been at my job for about 7 years now and still waste too much money on small, pointless shoot. Story 105. Afraid of spending to the point other people notice and get irritated. It's like I'm locked into this state and don't know how to feel safe. Even if I'm celebrating, I still feel physically sick with worry and guilt to spend. I also never throw food away, save the toiletries from hotel, feel like I'm constantly rationing all supplies constantly. I'll even do things like drive to pick up something secondhand through Facebook Marketplace, even though the time and effort exceeded what I saved based on my hourly wage. Wow, I might have a serious problem here. Haha. Thank you for listening. Story 106. It's hard for me to get rid of things that are still useful, even if I haven't used, or even seen it in the last 5 years. Story 107. Oh, I have a lot. To be clear, I wouldn't say we're financially stable yet. Have had struggles paying rent the past few months. LMAO. But in general, over the past 2 years, we've been much better off than when I was growing up. Hoarding condiment packets from restaurants and takeout. You never know when you'll run out of fridge sauces, and there's little worse than bland rice and beans. If you can sauce it, you can enjoy it. Hoarding restaurant napkins and the little napkins in those plastic cutlery sets you get. I've run out of toilet paper too many times to not stock up, just in case. I never really want to repeat having to reuse toilet paper. Throwing anything away. Cardboard boxes? Can use those for storage for all the other stuff you're hoarding. The packaging for a cool item you got? What if you need to transport it and it gets damaged because it wasn't properly stored? Plastic bags and paper bits? Practically free toys for the pets. The rest of the flesh around the ends of vegetables you cut off, if you throw away anything but the literal stem and root, that's wasteful. Keeping 3 million blankets and pillows around, just in case. Same for ice packs. Spent too many seasons with no heat or air conditioner. 3 months of dry goods staples, foods in the pantry, minimum. Dry pasta, dry rice, dry beans, at least several bags of flour and sugar, all in pint to gallon-sized containers under a counter. For the first time in 15 years, I ran out of rice last year because we hadn't needed to restock recently with having an actually full fridge. And the panic I felt, despite relatively full cabinets too, was so strong, we had to get some within the week before I'd calmed down that we weren't running out of everything. I also keep at least a gallon of water under the counter in a jug, just in case the water goes out. I would prefer it to be several, but I've been keeping that particular panic in check. Suffice to say, having to make soup with snow, because the pipes are frozen, busted, turned off from the water company, will make you realize quickly how important and scarce water is. Always giving everything away to Goodwill, or a local church, or a coworker, or something, instead of throwing it away or selling it. If it's in good enough condition, it would be better in someone else's hands since I don't need it anymore. Not a fun one for people to hear, but having weird hygiene rules, both in terms of being less clean than other people and more clean. My record for longest time without a shower, minus one break at a family member's house, is about a year, which is because our shower didn't work for that time or longer, and we couldn't afford to have it fixed. Now that we have one, I now adore showers and take them whenever I can. I also, as someone who often couldn't afford other kinds of sorta but not really hygiene products, think things akin to deodorant, sometimes still don't really feel a need to always put them on because, like, who cares? I clearly didn't die or get sick from a lack of it, which means it's a social expectation and not a real hygiene necessity. Reusing plates, bowls, glasses. I know it's considered gross, but growing up with a single mom as a depressed poor teenager, oftentimes nobody in the house had energy to clean everything fully, and putting something that was basically fine in the sink to be washed where it wouldn't be touched for at least a week seemed like a waste that just piled up more stress. If it's good for a refill of the same drink, or for a plate of seconds, surely it's good enough for reusing for a similar meal the same or next day. It's a hard habit to break, and my mom disliked this one. Refusing to go to a doctor unless absolutely necessary. Shoot is too expensive for that. Generally, a lot of issues saving stuff just in case. Not wanting to throw things away. Always being prepared and being scared to accept things getting better. No, story 108. I actually had an opposite habit result from always having to clean my plate, but generally not having enough food in the house. The case of never having enough food and that burning feeling of hunger reminds me of stressful and hard times. I think that's why I overaccumulate food to ensure I'm never hungry, and now I'm fat. Story 109. All of them. I'm stacking cash and trying to retire. Just hope my poverty lifestyle leaves me willing and able by then. Story 110. I owned only one pair of shoes for a long time. I wouldn't say I'm overflowing with shoes now, lol. But I often have moments where I'm like, wow, I can't believe I have shoe options. Or, oh yeah, I have more than one jacket now. Still, I make my clothes last a long time. And I really hope I never shake the gratitude of being stable. Story 111. Small-scale hoarding. I buy up in bulk at sale prices, so no matter what, you'll always have what I need. Never stop bargain shopping and almost never pay full price. Story 112. Desire to spend money I have left after my bills are paid. I'm working on it, but it's hard to see that money sitting there, knowing on some level that any day now something will pop up and take all that money. Story 113. Low bills. I have 0 subscriptions. I dropped my truck and car insurance and moved to a bike-friendly place, found a small jerk room to rent, with no roommates, just me to worry about and working hard. I work 60-80 hours a week. That said, I work jobs that I love, and I also take 60 days off in a row to travel the world. Story 114. Our household income is well into 6 figures, but I reuse my sandwich baggies even though a package of 100 only costs $8. I take a sandwich to work 5, sometimes 6 days a week, and I have not bought another package of Ziploc baggies in 5 years. I put the date in Sharpie on the box when we bought it, March 20th, 2020. I only take a new one when the Ziploc part starts to fail. I think the box I'm on has at least 5 more years on it. It drives my wife crazy. We operate a business that does just under $1 million a year in revenue, with excellent margins, but I drive a 2000 pickup that I bought used 8 years ago. I just can't convince myself to buy a new vehicle. Story 115. I'm a hoarder. It's mostly useless junk, like resistors and capacitors I've removed from old radios. Story 116. Hoarding parts for just in case this breaks. I have enough electronics chute to rebuild my setup 4 or 5 times over, most of it for free or next to nothing. Every scrap or board is just in case. Moving boxes. I've always got at least 30 broken down in storage, just in case. Buckets in case pipes or the roof leaks. Buying oil and coolant in bulk just in case I get a leak during a lean time. List goes on. Story 117. Wife wanting to buy new things because item is old or a bit out of fashion. No, we can use them perfectly. No need to buy replacements. We need to save the money for difficult times. Story 118. Hoarding food, old junk parts and socks and underwear and bits of material, etc. Being afraid to spend money, i.e., having 3 shirts, 3 pants, and 2 shoes as a wardrobe. Eating slop gruel for food when I can afford high-quality, nutritious food even thought its way overpriced. Ramen noodles and Nighthawk TV dinner, or beanie weenies, etc. when it's wildly unnecessary, etc. Hoarding money, like missing out on life and joy, foregoing experiences, and instead counting how many days I can go without a paycheck before I can't eat. Silver lining empathy. I feel for those struggling. I give. I'm generous AF to those I hire or pay for something. I share money opportunities at work for someone that needs it more than me for their fam, etc. Mostly though, living daily like I may not eat or be able to afford basic toiletries and never letting go of that anxiety and fear of being so broke that a soda or bag of chips is impossible because the money is needed for bologna and nutrient deficiency helping foods. Story 119. Getting pissed at my husband for wasting things. He's very touchy about weird things, so when my toddler left a cap off a marker and he put it on the counter, I brought it to his attention and he flipped out. His argument, it's just a cap on a marker. It's not important. I told him that I wanted to keep the set intact so I didn't have to buy more, so my 2-year-old could experience all the colors. He said it wasn't a big deal. The day before, he let her take a nice, relatively new 52-piece wooden alphabet puzzle and throw the pieces all over the floor, and she was hiding letters in boxes and things. I couldn't find the capital O. I guess he was still upset about me explaining that he needed to keep an eye on her instead of letting her do whatever while he was playing on his phone. I tell him that just because it's not important to him doesn't mean it's not important to me. Teach your daughter better than yourself. Teach her how to play with things and pick up after herself, that she needs to take care of her things so she can play with them a long time. I am sick and tired of wasting money on multiples of things because he can't be bothered to put in some effort. We were raised very differently and it shows. Sorry for the vent, but it is still fresh. Story 120. Ruin my eating habits or shoot. I haven't bought new clothes in over a decade aside from undergarments. For some reason, I stay away from women who put a lot of money into their appearance. Designer clothes, purses, lip filler, Botox. If you drive an expensive car, I just can't seem to wrap my head around it. Instant turn off. Story 121. Cutting open tubes of foundation and scraping out every last bit. Using a cotton bud to scape out and apply lipstick when it reaches rim level. Adding water to the last dregs of perfume to eke it out. I don't have to make toiletries last until payday anymore, but I still do. Story 122. Didn't grow up poor, just with parents who used food to punish and discipline. I see my food insecurity show up very often in the way I hoard food. Proud to say I've broken the generational trauma chain. My kids will never see me using food against them, or even emotional abuse against them. It took years of therapy, but I am here now. Story 123. Chronic fear of anything breaking stuff. I guess it's a good thing I take good care of my things, objectively speaking, but my subjective experience of it is neurotic. Story 124. Razors. I bick my head for the past 20-some years. Still can't help but reuse the same blade until so dull I can't cut anything. Story 125. Spending money on new clothes. I'll wait till my shirts, boxer briefs have holes in them and are begging to be put out of their misery. Story 126. Am literally the opposite to most people here. I can't stop trying to live max. I dislike growing up poor, having to go without, eat crap food, go without the latest video game, etc. Whatever it was. I was hyper aware of our surroundings and couldn't escape soon enough. My dad was a spendthrift, couldn't budget to save his life. Literally in the end. And whenever he had money, he spent it. He ran a little business with sporadic paychecks and we would be flush for about a month, followed by 4 to 5 months shrimping by. I got myself out and make a significant amount of money, multiples of 100K, and I just can't stop spending. It's not like I have to have the latest and greatest of everything, but I will not sacrifice. My car has to be a new M series. Holidays has to be 5 in business class. Lunch, 30 on the top end. Dinner, etc. I just cannot budget. I'm trying to change, but it literally pains me to go for the second or third class option. I honestly feel like I have a problem. Story 127. Having potatoes as a side for every meal to fill up on the cheaper stuff and need less of the expensive protein. 2 chicken drumsticks and a big side of mashed potatoes and green beans. 1 piece of fish with roasted potatoes and carrots. Homemade burgers and fries. 1 burger and a plate of fries, basically. Home fries with a few strips of bacon or an egg. The more potato you eat, the less of the meat you need before you're full. Story 128. Don't have any sense on how to decorate a place or have a lot of furniture. Grew up in bare apartments with a shared mattress on the floor. Story 129. Not poor, and am saying that for clarity of the situation, as the food was there, we just couldn't access it. But I grew up in a family that was really weird about meals and snacks and restricted eating. My parents kept all the food in a locked pantry, and you could be throwing up with hunger, and they still wouldn't let you have a snack, and I was diabetic. We also had to eat everything on our plate, and a lot of the food was pretty awful, as my mom was a terrible cook. It's taken me years to be able to eat vegetables as I couldn't stand the texture or taste of the ones she cooked. Think stinky cabbage, mush, and gray peas. I'm now really anxious around food and have to have my fridge and freezer and cupboards full to bursting or I panic. I hoard stuff like dried pasta just in case I somehow run out. I know it's not logical, but it's pretty much a compulsion. Story 130. Shoes. I will wear shoes until they have holes and are falling apart before my wife makes me buy a new pair. Story 131. Holding my breath when I hand over my card for a purchase. A little voice inside is still waiting for a rejection. Thanks to online banking on my phone, I often check my bank balance at the checkout line to avoid that anxiety even the day after payday. Story 132. I have the opposite problem of most people here. I think because we didn't have money growing up and I have it now, I spend it. I feel like I have to make it so I have what I didn't have back then. Story 133. I have this weird habit of sleeping on the floor. I have a bed and all the stuff still. I want my mattress on the floor. My partner gets irritated, but I still do that whenever she is not around. Story 134. Looking at furniture on the side of the road to assess if it is something I could use or rehab into something I could use. Story 135. In 45, I buy so many toys, action figures, and comic books now. I buy the ones from my childhood that we could never afford to help fill that void of my childhood. I don't worry about money for retirement. I'd rather help heal the kid that had to grow up too early, that was subject to abuse, violence, and poverty. I was told when I was a kid that we can buy comics or dinner for you and your brother, but we can't do both. That choice still haunts me. Still to this day, I'll put food back, make sure to buy food on sale, and buy food, but try and not spend any more money that day if I do. That when I always thought going to Goodwill to buy new clothes and toys was normal. Story 136. I don't buy things I would use all the time. For example, I could buy a pasta strainer because I make pasta once a week for the past 8 years, but I've been straining it by making a crack with the lid that way for so long. Another one is a toaster. I make toast by heating up a pan. I just can't justify buying an appliance like that when I can just do it using something I have, if that makes sense. Story 137. Buying my kids things and buying me booze. I have minimal wardrobe, but just enough, but it'll spoil everyone and buy myself booze. Story 138. Honestly, the only poverty habit I had was treating money like it was perishable. Any extra money I had needed to be spent, otherwise an unexpected bill would use it up. It was when I broke that habit that I started to become financially stable. Even before my earnings increased to the income to expense ratio it is today, which admittedly lets me splurge, but I rarely do. Story 139. Just constantly worrying that the amount that I have and make is enough, and that my success has been a total fluke, and any day now the floor is going to disappear, I'll lose what I've accomplished, and I'll be forced back into poverty and work minimum wage or something for the rest of my life. Story 140. Making one paper towel last for multiple cleaning tasks before throwing it out. Keeping plastic bags, using them as bathroom garbage bags or lunch bags. Turning off lights if I'm not in the room. Sneaking food into the movie theaters. Story 141. I shop by price, per ounce count, and almost always by generic. I marry bottles together when one is almost empty, and I open a new one, and I squeeze every last drop out of the toothpaste tube. I use things until they're completely worn out before I replace them. If it's something that can be repaired, I repair it and keep using it until it gets to the point where repairs become frequent. If it's something I don't need right now, but will probably need it again in the future, I keep it. Story 142. I rarely buy new clothes except for socks and underwear. I'd rather hit the thrift stores, and I usually buy books used or borrow them from the library. Story 143. Here are 3. Fast food. Eating like it's a race to finish. Constant anxiety and fallback planning. Story 144. I can never pick a birthday or Christmas gift when people ask me to. I'll always settle on a gift card to pay bills or something with utility, and then I never feel like I get nice things. But I realize it's my fault. It's why I don't wear makeup and still wish I could, even though I realistically could. I know it doesn't make sense. Story 145. Simply not buying stuff. My husband is in awe that I go multiple weeks without buying anything but groceries. Story 146. I grew up never having ever been on a traditional vacation. Now I can afford to go anywhere often. I cannot convince myself that a vacation is worth it. It's wildly expensive and stressful to fly anywhere. You stay in an overpriced room of questionable cleanliness. You overpay for food and transportation. Everyone is crabby because their routine has been so interrupted. I just don't see the value of the experience. Story 147. Eating super fast. When you didn't know when the next meal might come, you make sure you are everything as quickly as possible. Almost like I was scared the food would disappear off my plate. I still eat very fast and my wife has to remind me to slow down and that I'm okay. Story 148. I cook larger food items, think pork butt, whole chickens, and so on pretty regularly. And I stock up on those cheaper cuts constantly. Grew up poor. My wife has food security issues. Didn't really grow up poor, but does have some food-related trauma. And that all leads to have a full freezer in the garage, a garage fridge, inside fridge, all packed. Have a utility room converted to a pantry for dry goods, also packed. So that's our hoarding. Oh, and I hoard tools and stuff in the garage. And we've got decorations for each holiday, all far in excess of what normal should be. Story 149. Allowing myself to order a soda or tea at a restaurant instead of water. Growing up, eating out was a treat, especially at a sit-down restaurant. My dad would always tell us in the car before we went in that we were only getting water, no appetizers, and only food off the kids' menu for us. Story 150. Ruminating for months before pulling the trigger on a purchase that A, won't make a dent in my budget, and B, I know I'll actually use. Edit. I thought of another one. Saving clothes with holes in them to wear at home. Story 151. I grew up just barely above the poverty line in the rural South, and it only got worse when my parents divorced. My dad's mental illness worsened, and we lost our house and couch hopped for a long time. Decorating my house, or lack thereof, it all feels like a waste of money, and there's a small part of me that feels like we might lose our house, so why even try? Even though my husband and I are financially stable and have a cushion if one of us was to lose our jobs, I always feel like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. Story 152. Buying only the cheapest option if whatever I'm looking for. Store brand groceries unless a coupon beats it. Amazon used whenever I can't find it on Craigslist. Cheapest color of whatever shirts or pants I'm looking at. Story 153. Poverty habits stick because they once kept you alive. Scarcity rewires your brain so every dollar feels fragile and every scrap of food feels sacred. Stability pays bills, but it rarely erases survival code. The trick is learning which habits protect you and which ones just keep you living small. Story 154. Finishing everything on my plate, never throwing away leftovers. They must be eaten even if I'm not hungry. You can imagine how bad that is. Story 155. Growing up poor or living through financial hardship really does a number on your brain, eh? I lived through periods where we couldn't afford to have heating on and stressed about paying for food as it meant no money for fuel to put in my car so that I could get to work and, earn money to buy food and fuel with. Every penny was a prisoner and had to be negotiated fiercely for release. Much better financially today, but that mentality never really left. Even with 3 months' salary sat in main account and several years' worth in savings and investments, I still can't spend on inessentials without long and painful self-debate that almost always end up with me not purchasing it. Eating out is 4 to 5 times a year at most, and usually only for birthdays or special occasions, though this has helped develop a love of cooking. Everything that can be repaired gets repaired instead of replaced, and still do my own services on my vehicle and repairs wherever it is something I can carry out in a day. Story 156. Wear my clothes until they fall apart, then repair, collect bits and pieces of broken tools or items just in case they're useful later. Many times they are, but also many times they aren't and they pile up. Quesadillas are my comfort food and remind me of home. Story 157. Lot proud of this, but I despise spending money on clothes. Bras are like 7 years old. Most of my denim is 5'7" YRs, only replaced due to weight fluctuations. Most of my shirts are 10 years old. Anything I bought from Stitch Fix has holes in it, but I still wear it if it isn't blatantly obvious. Story 158. Actually remembering to eat full meals now that I'm not broke every day. I'm so used to only maybe eating once, usually in the morning or noon, and then maybe dinner usually after work and around midnight. And also to not stuff myself like I couldn't just order or buy more. And not panic when the cart runs out, cause oh wait, right. Not jobless on the street anymore, and I Ubered to the dispo last Q week, and I've still got 3 carts in my Lil Pot spot at home. Also remembering that I don't have to bring a day bag everywhere I go, and not be fully prepared for every outing. Story 159. The feeling that I don't have enough money saved because a big disaster is just around the corner. That all savings are for the big disaster, and any significant sum spent on something nice, but not absolutely and utterly necessary, would be deeply irresponsible. For instance, my car is 20 years old. The paint is peeling off. The plastic on the inside has rotted, and the seats are barely holding together. The AC and cruise control don't work, and there are multiple other small things that I just put up with because they're not worth fixing. However, it still goes. Although intellectually I know I could go down to the car lot today and buy a brand spanking new mid-range car with cash outright, it still feels terribly wrong to be so frivolous. I don't need AC or power steering or a working stereo to get from A to B, and if we don't need them, then we do without, says my brain. Same goes with my washing machine, my lounge, my oven, etc., etc. They're all pretty shoot but still have enough function to make me put off replacing them because I don't need to right now. Story 160. Making too much food. My mom always made the bare minimum, and I stress about making enough food to this day. Age 48. Story 161. Buying a vehicle that is cheap but I can fix up to use. I'm getting to the point that my time is too valuable and rare and my income too great that it makes more sense to buy something only a couple years old and in perfect condition. Story 162. Penny pinching purchases, even though I end up buying the higher quality, higher cost item eventually. Stupid. Story 163. In the early years, my wife and I washed clothes in the bathtub because we could not afford to go to the laundromat. Now we are worth over $1 million. Still plan our meals around the specials from the local grocery stores, and she knows what the good price should be, so she does not get fooled by a phony deal. She says the frugalness got us to where we are today. Story 164. The AC is on 73 at night and 77 during the day. It's too cold for me otherwise because it's what I grew up being used to. Story 165. Frozen OJ recommends 3 fills of water of the can to add and stir. He'll always do 4, 3 3/4 if I'm feeling like things are going good. Story 166. Cleaning every packet till the very last crumb. Either it's good or anything else. I just cannot see anything going to waste. Story 167. Never buying non-essentials unless they are on sale, and even buying generic brands if the higher quality brands aren't on sale. Except TP, always have good toilet paper. No matter how poor you get good TP. It makes a difference. Story 168. We have a rag system, so we rarely use Kleenex or paper towels. I shop at Winco and Costco and Restaurant Supply. Story 169. Trying to reuse things as much as possible. Lost weight and pants are too big. Can I make a skirt? Need a new piece of furniture? Can I find it secondhand and paint it? Or get new hardware for less than what I would buy new? Story 170. I am blessedly very comfortable, but I still refuse to look at my ATM balance when withdrawing cash. The idea of it brings back too much anxiety. Story 171. I tear paper towels in half, combine bar soap when it's near the end, and also don't ever waste food. Always ask for a box for leftovers. Story 172. My mom hasn't lived under the poverty line for a little over 55 years. When I visit her and my dad, I'll find that she still sometimes puts water in the bottom of the bathroom soap dispenser to get the smallest bits of soap out instead of just refilling the soap. Story 173. questioning myself on every purchase even if it cost $5, trying to figure out if I could build it myself and accepting and hoarding everything free people offer me because I might use it eventually. I did improve on that last one. I now own 2 houses that are worth 1.2 million combined. Story 174. When you are almost done with the hand soap or dish soap, put water in it and keep watering it down until there's obviously no soap in it. Story 175. I would drastically lower my living standards and cut out a lot of things, both essential and non-essential, just to save invest half my take-home pay. Story 176. Sneaking into an op shop to see if there are any work clothes or a jigsaw I like. Hey, the charities need my money and they want it sold. Story 177. Ramen. That stuff is just good, especially with a healthy dose of sriracha. I like canned ravioli too, right from the can at about midnight. Story 178. I always have to question myself when I buy anything for myself. Shoot, that's $20. Should I? Even when I can easily afford it, but I always have to question it. Story 179. Holding on to money as long as I possibly can. Paying bills the day they are due. Not shopping until I literally have nothing I can eat. Wearing socks and underwear with holes. Not throwing away shoes until they are destroyed. Not filling up the gas tank unless I'm on E. Story 180. These are more financially able habits born from poverty, but I keep comfort crackers with me. I always have a pack of crackers in my purse or car just in case. I rarely eat them, but the anxiety from growing up with food insecurity is still with me, and I need to know food is nearby if I really need it. I have several backups for all my toiletries in my bathroom, so if I run out of shampoo, conditioner, soap, toothpaste, etc., I know I have more and I don't have to go without for even a day ever again. Story 181. After buying a food I really want that isn't the usual, I will save it, and then it ends up expiring before eating it, or most of it. Story 182. I can't say I have seen poverty except 2 or 3 instances. Like 2008 economy collapse and COVID. We used to eat plain roti with salt and bit of mustard oil for a few months. So even now when I'm earning more than enough to fulfill my goals, I never ever leave a single crumb in my plate while I'm eating. Story 183. Not willing to spend a dime more on a vacation for stuff, as it normally isn't this expensive, and I can get it way cheaper. Not understanding it is not about money, but about my comfort and vacation. Story 184. I find it really hard to buy new clothes and often end up keeping them for far too long. Also always extremely careful with anything I purchase, even keeping the original packaging, to the point it could be mistaken for hardly ever used. Story 185. I grew up in grinding poverty, escaped it by the time I hit 30. At 40 and 50, I started doing well. I'm now rich, but in my 60s. But inside, I'll never be rich. Generational trauma is forever. I did break the pattern by not having children, which also helped me with financial goals. Once poor, you're always poor. Story 186. Leftovers always use every item in the fridge to ensure nothing is partied too hard. Also things like what I buy. For instance, I can afford a top-of-the-range BMW or whatever, but it won't get me to my destination any quicker or much more comfortably than most other cars, so I buy affordable cars with great reliability and God mileage. Cheaper to insure, cheaper to run, and does the same thing. Other things like my TV, for instance, since I've owned. Thank you for watching the video all the way to the end. If you'd like to see more content like this, you might be interested to know that I've created another channel with a similar theme, especially for those of you who enjoy what I do. I'll leave a link in the description, and I hope to see you there. Take care.